She's talking to Hannah. Yeah, okay. We've got that presser coming through soon, haven't we? I'm going to need to power up soon.
Good afternoon. At 6 a.m. this morning, the police began an operation to clear the Parliament and surrounding area of an unlawful occupation that has gone on for 22 days. I know that in planning for that operation, the police expected there would be hostility, resistance, and violence. They planned for that because that is what they and Wellingtonians have experienced for several weeks now. And while they had planned for that, it is another thing entirely to witness it. To our frontline police and emergency and fire services, you have our deep admiration and our thanks. You have been calm but resolute in trying to bring this occupation to a conclusion. It has come at great risk to your personal safety. Thank you for putting others before yourselves. We have all at times felt angry during this occupation. After all, when we're in the middle of a pandemic, had 400 people hospitalised and 20,000 people becoming sick in just one day, it's almost impossible to comprehend that people would stand opposed to efforts to slow that down and to help care for our most vulnerable. One day, it will be our job to try and understand how a group of people could succumb to such wild and dangerous mis- and disinformation. And while many of us have seen that disinformation and dismissed it as conspiracy theory, a small portion of our society have not only believed it, they have acted upon it in an extreme and violent way. That cannot stand. We have a difficult journey in front of us to address the underlying cause of what we have seen here today, but in doing so, we will never, ever excuse it. It was an attack on our frontline police. It was an attack on our parliament. It was an attack on our values, and it was wrong. And the reason it would have shaken so many to witness it is because it stands so completely against not just our response to COVID, but who we are as people. But we will not be defined by this. This pandemic will not be defined by the hard conversations we've all had these past few years. Our people will not be defined by a small handful of protesters. Our country will not be defined by the dismantling of an occupation. In fact, when we look back at this period in our history, I hope we remember one thing. Together, thousands more lives were saved over the past 2 years by your actions as New Zealanders than were on that front lawn of Parliament today. The sacrifices we were all willing to make to look after one another, that is what will define us. No protest, no fire, no placards will ever change that. Today, the police will restore order, and tomorrow, your government will continue to work hard to get us safely back to the normality everyone deserves. I'm now happy to take your questions. Yeah, Lillian.
When you saw the fire on the lawn today, how did you feel?
I was both angry and also deeply saddened. To see the Parliament, your Parliament, our Parliament, desecrated in that way, and a children's playground destroyed by a small group of illegal protesters, made me feel both angry and deeply sad. But as I say, it is not something that will define New Zealand's response to this pandemic.
Prime Minister, what would be...
Those trespassers, as you say, they set fire to a children's playground on the People's Front lawn. Is this why you refuse to go down and talk to them?
This demonstrates one of the reasons why we refuse to engage with that group. It was an illegal occupation. They engaged in hostile, violent and aggressive behaviour throughout the occupation. And today that has culminated in the desecration of this Parliament's grounds, the People's Parliament, our democracy. But I am absolutely committed. We will restore those grounds and we will not be defined by one act by a small group of people.
Prime Minister,
Jason.
Today we've seen people hurl projectiles at police and firemen trying to put out the fire that the protesters started. What is your message to those that are engaging in that behaviour?
There are words I cannot use in this environment for what I saw today, but I felt the same anger that I know many New Zealanders would have felt witnessing the hurling of basically weapons that people were able to get their hands on, LPG bottles thrown onto flames. Currently, we have cobblestones being hurled at police. It is still a live event. I felt both anger at what I was seeing, but I also felt resolute in what I was seeing. What we have done as New Zealanders has been the right thing to look after one another. And what we've seen in response to that has been completely wrong. To our police, our firefighters, our frontline services, time and time again, they show us the lengths they're willing to go to look after us. And I know that we are deeply grateful for those acts today. I do. I have managed to speak with the police commissioner. There have been various injuries amongst our frontline police today, most of which have been able to be treated on site. I will leave it to him to go into more detail at this stage.
And a lot of the protesters have been seen to be sort of pouring milk over their eyes. Do you have any update on whether they've actually been used sort of tear gas?
No, I do not believe that has been the case. I imagine right now the fires that they have created along the forecourt of Parliament or the front of Parliament, including by the War Memorial, is causing more distress than some of what the police would have engaged in today. I do not believe that was used, but it would be for the police to speak to whatever was utilised to keep them and others safe today.
Right up until late this afternoon, parents still had their children on the lawn. What did you make of seeing that today?
The presence of children all the way through this occupation has hampered the efforts of police, because police have rightly been mindful of the presence of those children. Today I saw myself children present. It was in much smaller numbers than what we've seen previously, but I know the police were mindful in all of their engagement of their presence We did have other agencies there today, and they were present should there have been a situation where, for instance, adults who are engaging in behaviour that may have led to arrest, should there have been children who are left unsupervised or uncared for, there was preparations made for that eventuality.
But what do you make of parents who are willing to put their children in that sort of danger?
I don't have words for it.
Today the protesters are being cleared off. Tomorrow the clean-up begins.
Yeah.
But also, this has revealed a pretty radical element.
Yeah.
There. What advice have you received, or a police or intelligence service is pretty much a heightened alert for the possibility?
No, there's nothing to suggest that our security settings as a country need to change. I think, to put it in perspective, I was advised by the Police Commissioner that we had in the order of 270 protesters who were causing the acts of violence and destruction we saw on the front lawn of Parliament today. That demonstrates that actually it takes only a relatively small group of people who are committed to destruction to cause it should they so choose. But it also demonstrates that it was not a large group who were engaging in those acts either. You'll have heard me say today, we are not going to dismiss some of the underlying causes of what we've seen, but nor will we excuse it. So as we go through a process of assessing what is it that has allowed that growth in mis and disinformation in this country and how do we address that, we will be at pains to ensure that it never becomes an excuse for the violent acts that it resulted in. The final thing I'd say is there has all the way through been an element to this occupation that has not felt like New Zealand, and that's because it's not. There has been foreign influence in what we've seen, maybe not in the traditional terms that we know it, but in terms of the disinformation that has been sourced out of other countries. That is something that we will have to tackle, but so too will other democracies, because it's a dangerous place when citizens are led into spaces where they believe so deeply in conspiracy theory that they act with such violence. Mark?
Over the past year, intelligence agencies have briefed Minister Little and maybe yourself on the security risk that misinformation and disinformation pose, particularly in relation to the anti-vaccine movement. Are you confident that the government has done enough to sort of prepare for this eventuality and to try and head it off?
I think that there's every democracy that we would perhaps compare ourselves to is facing this similar issue, and one of the difficulties is that alongside that growth in disinformation, it is accompanied by a growth in distrust of traditional forms of or access to information, such as mainstream media, and also distrust in government. So the very channels that we have open to us to try and counter disinformation become seen as part of the problem by those who are succumbing to it. It is a complex issue. Government will not be able to solve it alone, particularly given the growth in people accessing information in those non-mainstream platforms and media. But it is something that that we all need to address, because the result of it can be these extreme acts that we've seen today. Joe. Oh, sorry, Mark, I'll let you finish.
Do you see big tech companies as having some responsibility for this sort of thing? You know, the worst content is on minor platforms where people only get there through something like Facebook or Instagram.
Yeah, I think the question is who's implicated in the solution, who needs to be a part of the solution. And they do, yes. I mean, ultimately, there are all individuals who have their own responsibility for their acts who are involved here, and we can't take away from that. But do we all have a role to play in finding those solutions? Yes, we do.
There's still people out there.
Oh, do you mind if I just come to Joe?
Andrew Costa said this morning that it was a couple of days ago that was the tipping point, and obviously they've spent their time working out the operation and getting the number of police that we've seen here into Wellington.
Yeah.
What sort of, I guess, level of detail were you informed of in terms of that operation, and is what has played out today and what you've seen gone beyond, I guess, what you were prepared for on the basis of the conversations you had?
No, look, I would not expect to be given a briefing that would go into the tactical or operational decisions by the police, particularly because those are ultimately decisions for them. When I have been briefed, it's been often about giving me an indication of the scale of an operation, perhaps, what they hope to achieve with it, what time it may begin. and what they may see a conclusion to that operation as. So I was informed when they took
Matt,
that
turn it
phase
off,
one
turn
of
it off. Don't take on board any of her shit. We've all listened to her enough. Don't give her any ear. I just want to say I'm really grateful for all you like digital warriors who go and find and research shit, like all those internet service provider things and companies and stuff. My hat goes off to you. Digital warriors are awesome. No, I'm not watching her. I'm not giving her any of my energy. I'm not giving her my energy. Turn your back on her. That's all she deserves.
What a fucking lot of dribble. How dare she? How dare she talk about all of the teachers, all of the nurses and the doctors and grocery workers, all who lost their job were on that front lawn, you fucking rotten bitch.
Yeah, I couldn't watch that. She's a fucking rotten, evil bitch. And yeah, I'd probably end up kicking the TV off its wall mount if I started watching that. I haven't actually turned on mainstream TV in approximately 2 years, so I'll just keep not watching it. And I know what really happened in Wellington, and it won't be her version of the story.
So what we're seeing is a great performance by one great actress, Jacinda Ardern, who said that violence was characteristic of the protest, the peaceful protest throughout its entirety. What an absolute awful, lying, terrible, I'd say human being, but I think it's too good for her. That is just not case. And we have hours and hours and hours of footage that says that she is an absolute liar. So all she's doing is trying to paint the police as the victim and the government as the victim and you as the victim because it's your democracy. Well, that's what tyrants do. When free people rise up, when you take away their rights according to your own appeals court, you stupid muppet. They said you were violating people's rights. So the people have right to redress, and you did not go out because of violence. There wasn't any. Your police beat the hell out of protesters on day 2, you lying bitch.
You are the misinformation, you stupid lying bitch.
So what we're seeing is a great performance by one great actress, Jacinda Ardern, who said that violence was characteristic of the protest, the peaceful protest throughout its entirety. What an absolute awful, lying, terrible, I'd say human being, but I think it's too good for her. That is just not case. And we have hours and hours and hours of footage that says that she is an absolute liar. So all she's doing is trying to paint the police as the victim and the government as the victim and you as the victim because it's your democracy. Well, that's what tyrants do. When free people rise up, when you take away their rights according to your own appeals court, you stupid muppet. They said you were violating people's rights. So the people have right to redress, and you did not go out because of violence. There wasn't any. Your police beat the hell out of protesters on day 2, you lying bitch.
That's not true. Some of the first ones to get pepper sprayed were from Destiny Church. So don't start an argument about who was there and who wasn't there, because I've got live footage of people from Destiny Church with pepper spray all over their faces.
Seriously, they live on the loosh. If you don't know what loosh is, it's low frequency energy, anger, fear, sadness. I know it's really, look, I'm an angry person. I'm an angry person. And anger is really, it's valid, but you got to try not to live in it because it's real. They feed off it. They're demonic and they feed off your fear and anger. Chantel Baker, I'll fetch you a link. Hang on a minute.
So here we go. Exactly what I thought would happen is. So now she's talking about getting rid of free speech and censoring the internet because of information she doesn't like that she calls misinformation. That's what's happening. So freedom of speech, go to hell in New Zealand, according to one Jacinda Ardern. Even though It's also in the New Zealand Bill of Rights Act. This woman is so afraid of freedom and people being able to think for themselves and make decisions, even if they're wrong, irrelevant. So what resulted today was because the police came in heavy-handed. If they would have just left them alone, none of this would have happened. And until the police came in at any point, none of it happened. But she's going to go through a process, is what she said, and she's going to go after, censor everything she possibly can, because this is what tyrants do. So, you either take back your country from these awful human beings, or you lose it.
There's the link there. But don't get me to do your dirty work. This is a channel of facts and evidence. Before you go saying shit, check it out. It's enough that we have to listen to this bitch going on and lying and lying and lying. We don't need people down on the feed lying.
Looks like you've got Robert's been flying into the crowd now. For Jacinda Ardern to say that there was no tear gas used as a blatant lie. We're being here on the ground. We have the footage of that. 270 protesters that she believes was there. As you know, that's a lie. We've been streaming live. Everything Jacinda Ardern said in the presser is 150% lie. She completely and utterly has fabricated everything. She's lied to the country for years, and she's been playing out an agenda at the expense of you all. Now, regardless of what you think about the inhabitation of Parliament grounds, it matters not. The New Zealand Police have, as someone just said, become the government militia force. So we're going to go for confirmation that rubber bullets have been used. They're using sound frequencies, of course, directed at people. So we will see if there's another one. The tear gas is being deployed, regardless of what Jacinda Ardern likes to tell you. We have footage of that. Rubber bullets are said to have been used on people. We're trying to get confirmation of the injured sustained on the side of the people here. None of this needed to happen. There's a whole lot of things happening that's, well, it's not good, people. To say that we've only got 250 or 270 protesters here is a blatant misrepresentation of the sheer volume of people. You saw it yourself. We scanned everyone. I mean, there's at least that in this part here alone. This is also Andrew Kostick and prove he wasn't a limp-wristed dick. I know I should be a little impartial in my reporting, but it's a bit hard when you've been on the ground since pretty much the beginning, through the cyclone, through the building of Freetown, and the Kiwi ingenuity coming forward to make sure we had everything we needed. It was, by all counts, a model of the future. So, yeah, if you expect me to be... let's go and look at the news and see what's happening there. We can go and make another push there.
Police have been reluctant to be assertive here. They're taking the projectiles, just accepting it. But as you can see, they're more heavily armed, more heavily equipped, and it looks like they're attempting to move forward now. Batons are being held. You can see there one or two holding batons at the ready. There does appear to be some form of action about to happen. Looking at this from the other side, of course, we've seen protesters have seized some of the fire hoses. Meanwhile, police are still using the services of the fire department to fire water back at protesters to keep them off Parliament's lawn. There appear to be a couple of fronts have opened up here in the conflict, and most of the projectiles being hurled appear to be that appears to be the action of 2 or 3 dozen protesters, mainly young men. But there is no appearance at this point that the protesters are conceding any ground, just as the Prime Minister refused to concede anything or be conciliatory in her speech a short time ago. Our political editor, Jessica Much-Mackay, is with us now. And Jess, these are extraordinary scenes.
Yeah, it really is extraordinary what's taken place just in the last couple of minutes and when I've been talking to you. So basically now police have been able to clear the hill, the embankment behind me here, and then now moved over into the other side of the cenotaph. Now what's happening at the moment is there are queues of police, and in the last couple of minutes they have had rocks being thrown at them. In fact, it's happening still at the moment, and what appears to be fireworks, loud bangs that we can hear. So it's now shifted away. Actually now police are moving forward in quite a surge line. They've got the concrete barriers behind them. There's one of those fireworks I was talking about, and they're now trying to hold there. You can see to the side there's a whole group of protesters trying to get round that side there beside the barricades. So police are now having to sort of fan out into a U shape to try and protect Lambton Quay. For anyone who knows Wellington, Lambton Quay has a lot of businesses there going on, so they'll be wanting to hold that, especially at this time of night, even if people have been told to stay away. It's loud. We've got the helicopter, we've got that siren, which I think is acting as a deterrent, and we've got those loud firework explosions. So it's just a bizarre scene what's taking place here at Parliament.
The retail centre's been secured, but we can see behind you police moving forward again over your left shoulder there. Is there any attempt that you can see that the police are trying to hem them in?
Yeah, let's have a look at these shots now, because what's happening down there is that police are, you can see them pulling out protesters. one by one. They're now forming more of a sort of a triangle shape there, trying to protect that corner. You can see that the number of protesters are getting fewer and fewer. We've been standing on the police side, and we've had lots of police officers coming out, being injured, being patched up by people, being sprayed down by fire hoses, and now, so you can assume that that's happening on the other side with the protesters as well. In fact, I can see a couple being pulled out and arrested there, not going without a fight. As you can see, some of those protesters have been here for a lot of days and aren't wanting to give up. Yet it is that small hardcore group. Look, and now we can hear the chanting coming through just down to your left, Barrington, there. You can see the police surging through now, trying to clear up.
Come back here, people. Cut from the news. Here we go. We've got coming here. Have a look at this. Rubber bullets. Come back. Look at this. Rubber bullets. That's what's been fired. Tear gas as well. So everything Jacinda told you was a lie. What the hell's going on?
Calvin, can you show us that bullet again?
That
Calvin, can you show us that bullet again, please? And just
Sorry?
hold on. Can you show us that bullet again, please?
Well, did you not get it? I just handed it back to the person because I told you to come back to me and stay with me. They're coming from all directions. They're up there. They're up there. Canterbury Media does have footage. It will upload later to show tear gas. But Jacinda Ardern said was not happening. They're obviously using some sort of percussion grenade. Very angry people. It's just the start. Try and find that lady who's got that rubber bullet again. But I think we're recording anyway. Well, we should have got that. There's nothing going out on the phone that I can see.
Yeah, no, we got it going out. I just wanted to have another look at it and get a photo of it. It's all right.
Yeah, no, well we've proven there are rubber bullets being fired into the crowd. No, we'll stay here. Oh yeah, no, go there. I knew they'd look at the fire.
Late tore tents off Parliament's lawn, clearing about a third of it in a matter of minutes. Protesters tried to resist, hurling objects at officers before a fire was started in the remaining area of occupation, sending thick smoke across Parliament's grounds.
A standoff never seen before at Parliament. At dawn, hundreds of police moved in on the occupation that stretched into its fourth week, and they came prepared. A helicopter, heavy-duty forklifts, trucks and pepper spray to disperse the crowd. Protesters washing their eyes with milk and striking back at officers with a fire extinguisher and paint.
Early on we saw weapons, we saw shields, we saw barricades.
One by one tents were dismantled and parked cars that had been left for weeks were removed. Metre by metre, police edging forward, reclaiming the streets. A welcome sight for those affected by weeks of disruption, but many protesters are convinced they are the victims.
These terrorist goon thugs, these rent-a-cops, they're wanted for war crimes.
Some in the crowd claimed police brutality, pointing to officers punching protesters.
What I have seen myself, I am very happy with. I think our staff have been extremely patient and extremely restrained.
But any impression of peace and rationality on the protesters' side is increasingly hard to maintain.
Our forefathers have fought for this land, and you don't ride roughshod over it because some girl in a skirt is on a power trip.
Children remained on site today, this young boy facing the front line in his pyjama pants.
Police say their goal here is to clear the roads and restore order to downtown Wellington, and they won't be leaving until that's happened. Though people here are leaving this afternoon, there is a faction that seems equally determined to stick around.
I'm an ex-Sydney sergeant. I was on the line during the Springbok tour. I've had nothing like this. These people, the protesters, were peaceful.
What's happened today is disgraceful. I have never seen that kind of wanton violence in this country since the South African protests.
Came over specifically to make sure we could get our whānau out who are still camped in there, and yes, till now haven't left, because they're exercising their right to go and say that this is not right.
As this mammoth operation stretched on, police moved from the streets to ground zero, Parliament lawns. Making a push to clear the camp this afternoon, ripping down tents in full riot gear. As desperate protesters mounted a final resistance, a blaze broke out across the camp. A day of confrontation and tension in the heart of the capital with a clear message: the party's over.
That report from Kristen Hall just a moment ago, and she joins us now. She's been covering the protest since day one, including today's events. Kristen, what's happening right now?
Kia ora, Simon. Well, it is chaotic scenes on the outskirts of Parliament at the moment. While the protesters have moved off Parliament lawns here, their focus for the last 3 weeks, there is a heavy presence of protesters, possibly hundreds, out on the streets that surround Parliament. Now, we've heard loud explosions, several of them over the last hour or so. We can only hope that they're fireworks or perhaps stun grenades. They have been very loud to the point where they've been setting off car alarms, adding to those chaotic scenes. We've heard protesters yelling at police. They've been trying to disperse them with water cannons and fire hose, but that hasn't worked. Protesters have been hurling projectiles at police. That hasn't worked. They seem determined to stand there and hold the line, so they say they're standing there filming on their phones as they always do. There are still some tents set up in the area. There are still cars there. They seem absolutely intent on staying here no matter what it takes.
What's happened to them all, Kristen? Are they all...
The commuters haven't been caught up in this. It's going to be very disruptive. We've been seeing lines of police sort of standing against that traffic intersection area as protesters are refusing to stand back. Obviously, they're trying to contain the protest movement, but that is very difficult. There are a lot of people. They are very angry. There are disparate causes going on here, and it's hard to see how this is going to end this evening.
You've been there all day since very early this morning. You started, I think, before dawn. This operation began at dawn, but it took two parts. Your report earlier contained most of the first part, but all the action really happened from 3 o'clock onwards. Talk us through what police did.
So one of the most extraordinary things that most people who have been covering this story will never forget is that incredible blaze that we saw here on Parliament lawns. It engulfed this whole side of Parliament, leaving completely charred grass. It engulfed the children's playground that's only been set up in the last year or so. Huge plumes of black smoke coming from Parliament lawns and flames. It was just absolutely devastating to see, and I think some of us who have even been covering this for the last 3 weeks streets, didn't think that it was going to end up in an incredible blaze like it did, and yet still that has not sent the protesters home. They are out on the streets. They are determined to be heard or for their demands to be answered, whether it be ending the mandates or ending the vaccines or a whole range of other demands that they are asking for. But the Prime Minister's told them that's not going to happen. This behaviour isn't going to get them what they want, so it's hard to see what will send them home at this point if they are still determined on standing here and causing chaos.
We have, of course, in the past hour seen protesters out on the streets outside Parliament, heading towards Lambton Quay, hurling projectiles at police. Police heavily, in some cases, armed with shields, batons, and we've seen different riot police as well with full body armour and helmets. Is that conflict still going on there?
Yeah, it's absolutely still going on, and in the last half hour we've seen a number of injured police officers being carried out onto Parliament grounds. We saw an older man who appeared to be clutching his chest. He had black ash all over him from the fire. There was a police officer who looked to be in a very bad way. His leg was bandaged and he was being carried out in a stretcher. He appeared to possibly be unconscious. We saw another officer clutching his head, so police have sustained some casualties here for sure. No doubt there have been some protesters that have been injured here as well. The question now is what happens going into the night. The vast majority of protesters that I've spoken to here over the last 3 weeks are not from Wellington. They've come from as far as Northland and Invercargill. All the tents that they were staying in here on Parliament lawns have all been completely destroyed. There's a huge pile of them that have just been completely destroyed right off to my right here, and a lot of the cars that they were staying in have been towed and seized as well. So unless police are able to arrest their way through this very large crowd this evening, you're going to have hundreds of people still out on the street spoiling for a fight, and that could get messy.
And there are hundreds and hundreds of police down there as well at the same time, so hopefully it all turns out okay. All right, go home today. That's the call from inside the Beehive as police close in on protesters. There are calls for a review into how this has been handled and questions about how to stop an occupation happening again. Political editor Jessica Mackay has developments.
Clashes on Parliament's once manicured lawn. This area is usually dotted with public servants hurrying to their next meeting. Today we see the fallout after 3 weeks of tension. But inside, they're united.
Now's the time to go home.
When a protest then gets the call from mana whenua and Taranaki whānui to go home, it is now time to go home.
We want the protesters to go home.
It's clear that the protesters need to go home.
It's a very sad day for New Zealand.
I urge all those still there to leave peacefully today.
This has been labelled Camp COVID by the Prime Minister because some protesters have ended up in hospital after testing positive. Add to that illness from poor hygiene.
The situation within the protest has given rise to health concerns for some time.
There are calls to make sure this doesn't happen again, including a fence around Parliament and extra security like we see overseas.
It is the people's house, it is the people's lawn, and we have said that so many times on the steps of many protests. Welcome to Parliament. But the thing is, it's here for everyone.
This is a precedent-setting event that changes us.
It would be a tragedy to make our Parliament less accessible because this particular issue has been badly handled.
These scenes look foreign, but are taking place right here in our capital city.
All right, and Jess is with us now live. Jess, from your vantage point up there, tell us what you can see happening right now.
Yeah, well, things are really ebbing and flowing at the moment. We'll have a burst of action and then things will settle down again. What's happening at the moment is that police have formed a T intersection at the corner of Lambton Quay, heading up to Parliament, trying to keep people separate. So you can see there's still a small number of protesters there gathered around, but they have put concrete blocks in place and police lines. If we pan around and have a look at these scenes, we've got the cenotaph and then the detritus that's been left behind here. So we've got tipped over portaloos, lose. We've got all sorts of rubbish left on the ground. The tents have been taken down. We even saw bits of broken shields being brought out after the projectiles were thrown at the police. So the police are pushing up over that side at the moment, trying to clear the protesters out of this area. The fire really did change things this afternoon and bring them back in here today. The Prime Minister has shared her thoughts on this situation. Here's what she had to say.
An illegal occupation. They engaged in hostile, violent and aggressive behaviour throughout the occupation, and today that has culminated in the desecration of this Parliament's grounds, the People's Parliament, our democracy. But I am absolutely committed. We will restore those grounds, and we will not be defined by one act by a small group of people.
You walk through those grounds every day, Jess. You're someone who works there. What's it like to see today's events in that capacity?
Today has been a really bizarre day. Even right from early on this morning, there were extra security checks going in. There was a real heightened sense of anticipation over the hours this morning, and then later on this afternoon. Over the last maybe 2-3 hours, since about 3 o'clock this afternoon, things have really been pretty tense, and it's been all on for the police and for the protesters. The scenes here feel very foreign. They don't feel like they're happening here in Wellington, and it is bizarre to see as things are being cleared away, just everything that has been left behind. I have to say it's one of the days that we will definitely remember for covering here at Parliament today.
Thank you very much, Jess. That's political editor Jessica Much-Mackay, and you can see the very latest on this still developing situation at the protest online at onenews.co.nz and on our social platforms like Facebook and Instagram. Well, in other news, the civilian death toll is mounting almost a week into Russia's invasion of Ukraine. This strike at a government building in the city of Kharkiv, killing 10 people. Russia claims it's not targeting residents, but fighting has left the quiet suburbs around Kharkiv wrecked. It's not known how many deaths there have resulted. In the capital, Kyiv, 5 people died when the tallest building in Ukraine, a TV tower, was hit by a missile. Russia is now in control of significant parts of the country, shown here in red.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, you would have heard the Prime Minister in her press conference before the news that there are only about 270 protesters, and that was a complete blatant lie. Said no tear gas was used. That too looks like a lie. We have footage of all sorts. Rubber bullets are being used. We have showed you one of those. So yeah, everything she told you was an absolute lie. Why? Because we report on the ground amongst the people, the very people being affected by the carnage that she is reaping all over this country. Not only today. We understand. We're waiting for confirmation about a 4-year-old girl. Hopefully it's not what we've heard, but we will find out soon. You know, a lot of people say, as I said before, we've got to be objective when we report. No, we don't. We only have to be facts and evidence-based. There is no objectivity when it comes to that. You just deliver the facts and evidence as they are on the ground, and you can provide your commentary, of course. And one thing I can say without any fear of contradiction is that today's events were absolutely started by the police. It was not started by the protesters in any way, shape or form. There is a lot of people who believe mainstream media. They go onto mainstream media, of course, and they get their daily dose of sustained propaganda. We've been on the ground through the cyclone. We've been on the ground through the ups and downs, through the building of Freetown, a fully functioning town, basically, with sewage, everything. They had the nerve to say that the people there were dirty, the great unwashed, unsanitary. Yet when the people were creating toilets and they were creating showers, they would specifically target those. Why? Because it doesn't fit their narrative for people to look after themselves. This is part of the Great Reset. This is to drive out any type of self-sufficiency. They need you reliant on the government in order to subjugate you. And this today, what happened today is no different. Now, Andrew Costa violated his oath. The New Zealand police decided they would be the militia, private army, as it were, of a criminal network called the New Zealand government. Now, you heard all those politicians stand up in unison and say they're all united and now it's time to go home, because most of them are compromised, most of them are bought and paid for. We all know it. And the only people who usually get sucked in or usually get the lifeblood sucked out of them by these parasites is the people. The very people who have been standing up to even you masked strongos walking around like this pandemic is a thing. How many people dropped dead in any of these freedom camps throughout the country, even though these cases were apparently going through the roof? None. Not one. They tell you there's 300 and something people hospitalized. But for what? Did they have emphysema? Did they have the flu? Did they have a broken leg? Because as we know, you can get a gunshot and call it COVID. Fall out of a plane without a parachute. Parachute doesn't open up. COVID death. Shark eats you. Oh, COVID got him. That's how it works. They fudge the figures. They create the idea that there's this deadly pandemic that you must be saved from. So you rush to an experimental serum that is not good for you at all. It's highly unlawful, but it doesn't matter. Might is right. It's about time people realize that. We've been saying it for a long time. You know how many trees were killed in the making of these notices? So many groups creating notices. Well, we're serving a notice on the government. How'd that work out for you? The local hapu trespassed them. How'd that work out for you? All of these common law, natural law, everything else got you where? Nowhere. Why? Because this parasitical entity doesn't care. They don't see things the way you do. They have there is no fairness about them. You imagine us and cows. We keep cows, we milk them, we turn the bobby calves into whatever, or we create cakes out of them. Do you think we worry what they think? Even though they can see the tears in their eyes, yet we can't understand their language. They speak a different language. This is the same. These creatures don't speak your language. You are food to them, sustenance, an energy or a battery to keep the mechanisms of power rolling along. Because you've been taught right from when you were younger to comply, right from when you first hit the hospital bed or a home birth or whatever. No, you can't. Must do this, must do that. Then indoctrinated with all sorts of things that say, hey, don't worry, no matter how much you suffer, things are going to be great because someone's going to deliver you. Doesn't happen, people. Doesn't happen. Now, people gave me heaps in the chat, or some people, only a few actually, gave me heaps in the chat because I said, and I was only targeting specific religious fanatics who were involved on the ground down here. They said, don't worry, at the last minute, Jesus is going to come and save us all and smite the enemy, and Jacinda would resign. And how'd that work out for you? She's still in power. She still said it's unacceptable and you're not going to get what you want, and she's going to do it anyway. I think it's time for a rethink, people. So Māori sovereignty has been laughed at. The government has just laughed at you out of the negotiation room. Your rights and freedoms, joke. You only get those if they want to pay lip service to it, as long as they have an angle to keep you within the bounds of what they want. So yeah. So what we have had here is we've had rubber bullets, acoustic devices, the STG, of course. One of them just went past me now. So anyway, as you see, so early hours of this morning, Parliament grounds were breached at the Parliamentary Library area to maintain the high ground and, of course, a foothold into the grounds. Then the streets were taken, up Hill Street they were taken, and then, of course, they divided the groups. It was actually tactically a very good play. There was not really much of an answer. We did tell them exactly how they would do it, but unfortunately, there was no real leadership, as it were, and those purporting to be leaders who were negotiating with the government. Because we heard from a very well-placed source that the Minister of Police got hold of a lawyer in Melbourne who was to speak with these particular leaders, and they were asked to find out from the people what their demands were. They never did. Remember when I said to you, they're snakes? And if they want to assume to be representing you, they needed to get up on their main stage early on, consolidate, get the right messaging, and stick with that. Well, it didn't happen. Instead, you had multiple factions all working, well, against each other half the time, complete disarray. But the unity of the people themselves, the ones who were there, who had nothing more to lose, who have just now lost everything, they were always committed. They were always together and always had the same mindset. What pisses me off is these bullshit leaders who get up there and for the last week or so, they have been given that subtle messaging of winding it down, moving your cars, going home. So, of course, as the numbers depleted, the police were then able to bring in the last of their security forces and breach because they didn't have the numbers to deal with. So thanks to all those who sold the people out. We know who you are. We have footage as well, and other independent news media has footage of a particular group starting fires and basically acting like Antifa, all so the riot squad could have justification to move in. You know, like I always said, it's bad enough when you're confronted with an enemy, but when you've got the enemy within, that's even worse. And we've seen it. Like I said, we don't come here, have 3-hour speeches, play some music and piss off to a luxury hotel. We stayed here on the ground, in the tents, talking to everyone all hours of the night, finding out what everyone thought. The common denominator was they just wanted to be left alone to get on with their life. But Jacinda and her minions, they all want to control you because they're directed to. They're told how to reshape the country, how to prepare it to be integrated into the Great Reset. Justin Trudeau, same. And the Greens idiot, the import, well, I think it's Iran, same thing. Young globalist leaders, Klaus Schwab. So all we can do now really to try and help people is dump the information, because information is power. So we will start dumping some rather contentious issues. And I would not be surprised if we see a few parliamentary scalps start happening now. They were warned, they didn't listen. Now it's time to deliver the goods. So as you can see, that's the scene on the ground currently. Must be, of course, TVNZ or something. They have all the great Zoom stuff. We were to, we could have caught all this even better, but equipment, the gentleman who was to come was meant to be here yesterday. We could have caught all this, properly got everything, but unfortunately not. So it looks like they've cleared most people. I understand there are some relocating to Shelley Beach. But where to from here? I don't know. I understand Picton's going to be cleared soon too. So, because that was the plan, that different ones all over the country would be, of course, cleared out, just like this one. So there you go, people. There's your update. Pretty sad day, to be honest. I'm not feeling the best. I'm not sick or anything. I'm just pretty gutted. Pretty gutted. My heart goes out to the people who were here, genuine people who were here, not the snakes who sold you out every step of the way. You all know who they are. I've spoken to a lot of you on the ground over the last weeks. All of you know exactly who they are. We've called them out ourselves. It's not just that particular group. There's 6 slots. So anyway, everything's cordoned off here. We'll try to make my way back to a safe place. I know Andrew Costa said that they would be targeting alternative media. Why? Because we stuff up their plans. We deliver the reality on the ground, and they can't lie to you. Anyone with a discerning view or a bit of logic can have a look at the 6 o'clock news and then what we show throughout the day on our lives, and they will see that you'll be lied to. Anyway, thank you very much for joining us. I don't know what we're going to do now. Like I said, I'm a bit all over the place. So.
We're just waiting for Picton to jump on.
I would say things have definitely settled down a bit in the last half hour or so. I mean, at the 6 o'clock firecrackers were going off. It was absolutely sort of quite deafening, and you could hear the sounds of rocks and bricks just
hitting. Yeah, I mean, we were told there were firecrackers, but as we showed you in the live, they were rubber bullets being fired at people. We know that because we got one and we showed you live. They haven't mentioned any of that. We even showed you live the people holding those particular weapons that dispensed those rubber bullets. So we've also got footage to show tear gas, of which Jacinda Ardern said was not used. She also said there was only 270 protesters. You saw that was a lie. Everything she's lied about. How can you people still believe the shit that comes out of her mouth? Disgusting. I walk around Wellington and I have a look at these masked minions. And they cross the road, some of them, if someone without a mask comes near them. Is I go towards the people without masks because they're the ones you can tell, hey, you've got a brain. I understand some people got jabbed because they needed to keep their job and all that. I've got no problem with you at all. You were coerced. Some of you held out. But I don't understand you maskers. You walk around, I mean, it's almost like a fashion statement. I mean, we used to go to some of the rallies down in Christchurch and other places, and they were selling masks. You know, I will not comply on them. I will not comply on a mask that you put on to say you're not going to comply while wearing your mask. Clowns. This is a type of double thing that's been employed here. We hold two diametrically opposed views in the one. It's not good. See, I'm pretty gutted, people. Absolutely gutted. Got pepper sprayed in the eye over this one. Lucky it wasn't full on like some of them. And the milk didn't really help, to be honest. Just saying. Still, in fact, when I put that in, it was it stung more. So anyway, I washed my hands. I got it over my phone as well. I spent a bit of time scraping it off my phone.
I did get some goggles for you.
Yeah, apparently, you know, I was given goggles. You're not muted anyway, so we're still hearing you. But of course, when I went there, no one handed me any. But that's okay. I'll get in the thick of it anyway. It's got to be reported. So have you got Picton yet? Has anyone contacted them to see what the update is? Because like I said, we expect Picton to get hit as well.
Yeah, we're just waiting for Deborah to jump on.
I don't know how they're going to get on with Waitangi, because that opens up a whole new barrel of concern. I haven't really got no more fillers, people. I'm sitting here reflecting the last 3 weeks, 3 days, or 3 weeks, 4 days. And there were some really awesome moments, you know, when people were coming together and they would see a problem and the engineers or the plumbers or the electricians would get in there and they'd solve it. And and then the people would have one more thing that they could rely on. I mean, that was amazing. The unity and the community that was created. I mean, they were policing themselves. And then, of course, today it gets raided. People were injured.
Across 16 DHBs, the entire length of the
Might
country.
be, 405 in hospital now. But you know, see how they're doing it there. 405 in hospital, 75% in Auckland. So they're making it sound huge, 75% in Auckland. But 405, what's 75% of that? That's not much at all. 22,000 new cases. Okay, well, where were the cases yesterday, which was, I think, 20,000? So so what's your total cases now? 100 and what? 40,000? Where are they? What areas? What hospitals are they in? And of course, they'll tell you, hey, you know, our hospitals are coping at the moment, you know, we're doing well, blah, blah, blah. It's just not happening. Okay, I've really got no more fillers. So if we want to go to the news and listen to that, I don't want to ramble on. Sort of. But got to think for a bit.
In hospitals, they are also expected to continue, but the word from the minister is that we should just
Let's hope justice is finally done soon.
The system is holding for now.
We have 80.8% of our intensive care high dependency unit beds in use. We've got 64.5% of our ward beds.
Thanks.
Actually,
Hey, I'm on the back up the Dummy Jack, and what I'm filming now is Hammers cleaning the tents out of the tent. So
Sorry, we're doing it live. Okay, here we go. So we're here with the people, and what's the atmosphere here? There's an atmosphere out here, but what's inside yourself?
Well, there's a lot of confusion here at the moment. But yeah, we've just seen a few police go around past and all this, but I'm trying to keep the people calm, chilled out, you know, and do what we normally do. We're not going to be reacting to them in the wrong way. We're hoping.
Sorry, there's feedback. Sorry.
All good?
Yeah, keep going.
Okay, all good. Okay, we'll just sit here because we want to get the people with us, behind us too. So, yeah, here we go. That's better. Yeah.
The people are a little bit confused here at the moment, but we're going to try and do it how we set out in the first place with the documents and all this, stand by them.
Go out in the light more, it's too dark. Sorry, yeah. Yep. We got you. Thank you. Okay. Okay. All right, we're sorted. We're sorted. Just another seat there. We just freshly run down the hill.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll keep a sense of humour through this.
Yeah. We've just seen a van load of police go past and that, but we're just going to carry on the way we were. We're having tea and all this now. We're trying to calm the people down a wee bit. I think they'll be all right. But yeah, we got a couple of the young hotheads and all this, but we've got to slow them down a wee bit because there's a lot of the local older people here. The tangata whenua, they're standing by the people. They're not going away. They can't evict the local people from this land. They've been informed of all their rights. Police have, so whatever happens here now, it's going to be on them. Not going to be on us. We've done the right thing. We haven't done any wrong. Nobody's done any wrong here at the moment. And if the police come to do anything, they will be in the wrong. So I've told everybody to start filming. Keep a good, keep a lot of cameras on them. If they do anything wrong, it will be international, and they will be the ones that are doing the wrong, not us. We're going to stay by that same mana that we started off with the documents and all this. We're going to do it with aroha. We're not going to. Well, I hope nobody gets picked up and beats an egg or anything.
Yeah, well, I think we'll just go back to just briefing because we'll go back to some main points, but just wondering where are things at the moment in Wellington?
Yeah.
Okay, we're just not live there. So, Aotearoa, we're coming live from Nelson Square in Picton. I'm with the local Matua Mick. We just want to update you. We served papers, well, would have been about 22 days ago. Well, actually on the 16th of the 2nd, 2022, to John Leggett, the Mayor and Associate Constable in New Zealand Police and Peace. We are a peaceful people here and a peaceful gathering for our inherent freedom. We would like to serve John Leggett, the Mayor and the Associate Constable in New Zealand Police with this notice of your obligations and rights pursuant to the Public Trust Act 2001. It is the intention of the people, non-resident settlers, gathered in Picton, to give John Leggett, Mayor and the Associate Constable in the New Zealand Police the rights of all liabilities as civil servants in the capacity of fidelity to the non-resident settlers presenting this notice of liabilities, and in this freedom gathering, serving this notice on the date of 16th of February 2022. This notice is endorsed and witnessed by 13 representatives of the non-resident settlers gathered in peace for freedom. This is a notice of trespass against John Leggett, Mayor, and the Associate Constable in the New Zealand Police for the non-resident settlers gathered in Picton in peace. Now we stated and we gave them the notice of liabilities. We then have discussed with the police their intention of being on the land, to remind the New Zealand Police Force that they police with consent and the trust and the confidence of the people. Now, we've been talking together about ourselves as men and women in this nation. First, men and women. Second, our trade. Now, as we talk of sovereignty through this land and through internationally, we need to decide the intentions of our heart and who we serve. Same as the police. It is their choice whether they have a conflict of interest within their value system of what is happening currently. Until then, the police on this land have been allowed to be on this land under the kaupapa of causing no harm. The reason they were here was, as we understand, there had been neighbours saying our people, or the people on this land, had been threatening and doing stuff, and they also said that members of the public outside wanted to cause us harm. So we've invited them to stay if they follow the kaupapa on this land, which is to cause no harm. So we are treating them as the people that are moving with the people to protect us and anyone else that is stressed. Now, currently I can't speak for anyone that's up in Wellington, but we've discussed as we move internationally and across our land, where to from here. We know that this convoy was and is about stopping all mandates, ending all restrictions regarding the COVID-19, and you'll know a lot of these. Look them up again. But we still stand in that manner, and we know a lot internationally. A lot of the countries have already dropped the mandates. And now where we've discussed that there's going to be many traumatised people that have been currently up in Wellington. And there's going to be lots of anger. The broken, feeding the poor, helping those single mums who are struggling, anyone that is hurting right now.
Yeah.
You've said come. Haere mai.
Yeah, haere mai to everybody that needs a hand in all this. We are setting up like a hospital. We know the hospitals will not take our wounded or our hurt people. They're not taking those that are in stress or anything. Well, we're here and we will be working with them. So even though the police are threatening to do what they want to do, we are still under that aroha of looking after the people. Everyone that comes back from Wellington, we're going to be down there at the ferry terminal to pick them up and to bring them back and to comfort them through these real horrible times of our people. We're going through a real bad, evil time. And it seems to be the money that's created all this evil. So we're going to be here still doing what we started off to do, be here for the people that are frontliners in Wellington who have taken it to the government. So the government has used the force upon us that is supposed to be there protecting us, but they have convinced them to really destroy us. destroy a lot of people. A lot of people are hurting. So we ain't going anywhere. We're going to be here. We'll, maybe have to regroup if the police do come in and try and destroy us and all this. But we're going to still be here with aroha for them people. We may have to set up down the road just to take these people that are injured. But we will be setting up like a hospital. We will be putting up the Red Cross, you know, for these people to come here. If you go against that kaupapa, well, it shows how evil this country's become in the control of our people. It has become real evil. It's all about money now. There is no mana in this country at the moment. Not in the hierarchy that's controlling us. There is no mana there. All the iwi, all the treaty tribes, they've been bought out. They've sold out their own people. We're standing here as people against that corruption that's been ruling us all and destroying our families. I still stand as family. I'm not tribal. So any of you people out there that need a hand, we're here. We will pick you up if you need a hand. We've still got the aroha. Might not be with the rest of the country and that might not have the aroha, that might have the hate for what we've actually been doing. Trying to save our people, trying to free our people. We as free-minded people are the only ones that can actually set us free. At the moment, with what's happening, you've become under that evil spell of the money, the whole lot. Too many of our people have sold us out. So, you know, I can only say that we're going to be standing here with our aroha and under that kaupapa, what we started. You know, what we've done with the mayor and the police, and what we've issued with them, we will be standing under them. If they are under that paper, if they cannot acknowledge us, they will be in the wrong. You know?
Yeah, and you know, the message that's on my heart is as well a call out internationally through all countries, through all land, to the organised churches of the land. As you sit inside your building, as scripture says, yes, pray for our leaders. I come to you as a sister, as a mother and a grandmother. I don't come here to rule over any man, but I come for a message for the Christians throughout the world that are inside the doors of the churches. Open up your doors. It says in the Bible, pray for your leaders, but Meshach, Shadrach, and Abednego did not bow to foreign gods. Moloch and Baal worship is when they're killing our babies at 9 months, when they're harming our children, when they're killing our elderly. That has gone down in our land. I stand against those blood bills. We pray for our leaders, but this is things unseen. We do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but principalities and powers of darkness. So I stand against that, and I say to you inside my Christian brothers and sisters, you have not been given a spirit of fear, but one of love, power, and a sound mind. The Great Commission says, always gather together. You've got the star on your door. You're separating. Jesus said, just come. I just say there is a solution. You are allowed to gather under red with workers, as many people on the land. You are all workers, aren't you? Aren't you disciples? Aren't you to heal the brokenhearted, to set the captives free, to break the chains of the prisoners, to look after the widows, to feed the poor? I call out to you. I know from where I've come from. I'm not judging you. But as a mother, open up your doors. Anyone, if you are stuck in funding from the government, this is the same as the maraes.
Yep. The prisoners of that funding.
You know, was it the wine and the muskets? Is it the money?
It's the money.
Because at the end of the day, our warriors, our forefathers died in this land for freedom. In the marae, the doors need to open for the people. Don't be sold out by the funding. So I just respectfully say, don't be scared. Open up your doors. There's so many churches around here. The doors are closed.
Yes.
Jesus said, just come. Do people knock and say, I need some food? Oh, no, you've got to be vaccinated. Come on. No, you've got to be vaccinated. Oh, I want to get water baptized. No, you've got to be vaccinated. Respectfully, please. Don't be fearful. Get out of the money. There's one church called to be holy moving across this land. I encourage you. There was never a good end for all of the disciples, was there?
No.
You know what I'm saying? If you're bound now, what you going to be like when they come for your head? They've come for our children.
Do you come under God or do you come under the government? No, simple as that. Have you bowed to the government? Are you doing God's work? Because it doesn't seem to be that you're doing God's work. You're under the government and they are controlling you.
Yeah, that's it. Hey, the harvest is ready and the workers are few.
Yeah.
But that's okay because I just come to you with my whakaaro of where I stand. And I walk across this land, and if that's in prison or if that's to the death, I stand for the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. That is the God of love and the God for all people and the God that does not condone the killing of our babies and the killing of people and to love thy neighbour.
Yeah.
So don't get us wrong. We are loving thy neighbour, but we call different like Elijah called to the foreign gods. Let our people go.
Yep.
Let our people
Free
go.
our people.
Now, if he doesn't hear heart's cry from the Christians, let our people go. We need God to help set us free. Atua, ihu karaiti. So that's my message. Internationally, don't be scared. Come out of those buildings and move across the land. Let's see who's got the power, eh? Like Moses and Pharaoh. Who's got the power? Who's done the work on themselves? Whose authority do you come in? Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the point that was on my heart to make. Yeah. So yeah. And so we moved together, and you know what? We're from all walks of life.
Yeah.
You know, but it's sovereignty of choice, and that's what we're going to go back to right now. Let's make it clear: freedom of choice, freedom of speech.
Yeah.
And not dictatorship. That's not the kaupapa here of the beehive. You know?
Yeah.
So
we come under our ancestral rights, you know, not under the government rights to impose their rights upon us.
That's all right.
We are tangata whenua of the land. You know, too many of our people are bowed down and sold out. They aren't the mana whenua, they are the money whenua. They've done wrong by their own people.
And in the end, the love of money is the root of all evil, which means you will do anything for money.
Yeah. That is your mana.
Will you do anything for money? And I just, you know, every whānau out there, every home, I know it's a struggle right now. You're weighing up the cost, but nothing worse than being in a false agreement and yourself. What is it to gain the whole world and you lose your soul? So be strong and courageous. Look behind us. In amongst it all, we carry on. What do? We feed the people.
Still having a kai.
We still have a kai. Yeah, look. Matu, it's whānau's there. He's got his back in the car. Nelson Square, Picton, Aotearoa, New Zealand. We are here and we do a call out to all of you that are in fear or you are suffering. We take it down to the whenua. We are the hands and feet of healing, all of us together. And so we say come to Nelson Square where we can offer you, feed you, and help you make sense of where to from here for you. Whether you're coming from the north to the south, that's the kaupapa on this land, and this is the shift that's happened for such a time as this.
Many out there don't have anywhere else to go.
Yeah.
Many of them are homeless. I've sat here and listened to the corridor of a lot of people that are really, really hurting. People that are really hurting. They haven't got anywhere to go. They've got no home now. They've lost their jobs. They've lost their mana, the whole lot, because of what Jacinda has done. She's stripped them of their dignity, you know. And
Jacinta and everyone else hiding behind Jacinta. All of you know, right? Stream it right back. But in the end, all things will come to the light. Sooner or later. So now's your chance to change it around for each one of us. Change it around, straighten yourself up. And that's a call out to everyone.
Stop walking in her shit.
Yeah, that's it. And look, do you know the great thing about Kiwis? I just love that, you know, when all else fails, look, we'll show you. Fish and chips. Right, look, when all else fails, this is what we do here.
Thanks, Picton Dairy.
Look, a little bit of comfort food there. A little bit of fish and chips, okay? So that's the download, fish and chips.
Yeah.
You know, we can still go and get our fish and chips. Yeah. So Mick's having a few fish and chips there. So let me just take that back. Yes, so that's been happening. You know, it was quite sad earlier on, actually, for a mother who was beautiful mum, a mum that's wise, you know, running down that road with her 5 children, worried for her children here, worried what was going to happen to her children. Where have we got to here? So I suppose this goes up higher up the line for the local police. It goes up the ones to the top of who's in charge.
Yeah.
So, you know, let's remember policing is with the consent, with the trust and the confidence for the people. And of course, you wouldn't be working with the government because you're for the people. So I suppose the ones up the top, this is a call out to you to do what's right. You can hear the numbers. You can hear the cry of the Kiwis. It's loud and clear. Who do you work for? Who do you serve?